Talking Sense. I am here with Denise Persson, CMO of Snowflake, and also board member of great companies like On24 and Neo4j. And this is part of our Empowered series. So all of these interviews are with just amazing women CMOs, women trendsetters, people out there really pushing the role of marketing and women forward in the industry. And so it's pretty amazing to have Denise. Welcome, Denise.
Thanks, Latané. It's an honor to be here with you today.
I must say, I'm a little starstruck, so I hope I don't say something dumb, because when it comes to women CMOs, the best of the best is right here, people. Like, she is the one. So I hope everyone's got their pens and their pads and they're taking notes. I know I'm going to be taking notes. And I'm really excited to dig into your 5 pillars of successful marketing, a little bit about the IPO, but also post-IPO, like what's business as usual now at Snowflake. And last, one of the things we talked about in the prep is walking through walls for things that matter. So I know people will want to hear about that. So let's get into it. And I want to start with, this Empowered series. There are some themes that we've been talking about over and over and over again. And one of them is the concept of a chief market officer. And obviously you're part of the Empowered CMO network, so you've heard Christine Heckard and you've heard Kate Bullis and other people talk about really this importance of market, and that perhaps as CMOs, we maybe haven't attached to that strongly enough, or sometimes get caught in that day-to-day and forget market. And so, when we talk about these things and we talk about being a chief market officer, how does that resonate with you? How do you think about that?
Well, first of all, again, thank you for the introduction. I think there was a slight over-exaggeration, but thank you so much. Again, if you look at the market, the most important thing in the market are your customers. And I think that's the one thing we need to remind ourselves all the time, is to be as customer-centric as we can possibly be. And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but we have this, 5 pillars that we built our marketing on at Snowflake. And one of them is to be the most customer-centric company and the most customer-centric marketing team, in our industry. I think that's the most important thing, is to always think outside in, look, from the outside in, and truly understand what are the priorities and needs, of your customers. And marketing is really about helping customers, right? That's how you build, trust and credibility with your customers as well. So what you need to do is really to find ways to really constantly keeping the pulse, on your customers, and that's going to look different at different stages, you're in. In the early days, for instance, at Snowflake, right, every week, we sat down with our sales engineers because they were out in the field really gathering intelligence, from our customers every single, day. And based on the feedback, we got from our sales engineers, that's how we built out, our content strategy and, what is that next, content piece, we need to develop, and how are we going to do that to really make sure that we were always addressing the needs, of our customers. And that's, I think every company say, okay, we are customer centric.
Yeah, who doesn't
And
have
we're
that
putting,
on their,
yes,
yeah.
absolutely, yes. But it's about how you follow through on that. That is important.
Follow through, but then also position. Because I think one of your pillars is around positioning, right?
Yeah, and that relates, of course, to the market, as well. And the foundation of marketing is really about, positioning, and this is a hard, piece of marketing too, and everyone struggles, with it. But it's really where marketing, begins, right? You really need to define what is the category you are creating. And then marketing is really about the process of going out and owning, that category. So you really need to put a lot of work on that in the beginning. And again, this is also, of course, we're all at different stages of our companies, but if you are a startup right in the really early phase, it's going to be critical for you to define again what is your category and be incredibly consistent, with it. And if you look at most startups, and I have made these mistakes in the past, right, is that you're changing your messaging, too often, so nothing really gets to stick. And as a startup, one of the most important challenges you have is that you don't have trust yet. You don't have, credibility, and consistency is something that really builds, trust. So again, do the work there on the positioning and be consistent with it. That's going to be incredibly important.
How do you, though, um, stay true to that when everybody has an opinion about positioning,
Hmm.
right? It's not like people say, oh, I'm going to go build code for you, or I'm going to go chase down that contract signature. But when it comes to positioning, everyone has a position. I just cracked myself up there. But so how do you sort of get people where they need to be, and then say, you know what, guys, or gals, we're sticking to it, because it takes a little bit to work too.
Yeah. And in most cases, right, positioning is being developed by, you have in the early days, right, the leaders in the company get together and you talk about positioning, and everyone has a different, opinion on that. And it's your role as a CMO to make this work and come up with a decision. But there are a lot of strong voices in that room as well. And who is right? You just don't know for sure, right? The process I really like is the one that has been developed by a consulting firm called Zoom Marketing. I'm going to give them a shout out here again because they have a very unique process for doing positioning, and of course starts with everyone getting into the room together, and you look at all the different options that you've thought about. The second step is, of course, going out to your customers and get feedback, from them. And in most cases, it stops by that, right? You ask your customers and that's it. But your customers, they already know about you, right? They
Right.
already understand, what you're doing. Yeah. And the most important thing is that your positioning will work with the thousands of other prospects you're going to sell to next. So the third step they're using is extensive testing with prospects as well. So you have to sit in focus groups. You sit behind, glass, and you're doing this moderated, sessions. There's a moderator doing these sessions with prospects, where they're testing all your different, positioning options. They are testing everything from your differentiation to, tagline. You can test all kind of things, and that gives you just so much intelligence, back. That is going to be so much helpful for you as a marketer after as well. But then you basically get sort of a stack ranking on your positioning. And when we did this last time, we had about 50 different prospect companies, involved. So in the end of the day, it's a very data-driven approach, and it's hard to argue, with the data, right?
Oh, I
And when you
love that.
have the data,
Yeah.
yeah, when you have the data to back up your positioning, it's going to be so much easier to get buy-in from the rest of your company as well.
Well,
So I
otherwise
highly recommend.
it's like grading poetry, and maybe I like, Maya Angelou and you like Edgar Allan Poe. It's just like what we prefer, right? Not this is
Yeah,
what our
yeah,
market prefers on the whole, which is what you got to get to. And it's called,
exactly.
is it called Zoo or Zoom?
They're called Zoom marketing, just like Zoom, the conferencing, company. Yeah, they're called Zoom marketing. So I can highly recommend taking a look at the process that they have, because again, the magic behind it is really that data-driven approach. It takes out that the objective, feelings about your positioning,
Mm-hmm.
and it really gets you to it will get you to the right decision at the end.
I love that. I love that. So
Yeah.
market positioning, um, customer. Can you maybe just summarize the five, and let's go through them. Let's drop some knowledge.
Yeah, let's Okay, let's go through them. All right, so checked off, positioning, right? I mean, that's where marketing starts, and again, that is really where every startups, struggles, in the beginning, because it is so important to kind of get that right. And again, all your marketing is going to be built on that positioning. Second part is around, of course, customer centricity and really finding ways to have that constant, pulse, on your customers. But the other thing around customer centricity is also to put, customers at the forefront of your marketing. And we know that no one can sell your company and your product better, right, than your happy customers. So I think that's a thing that, of course, everyone talk about as well. Everyone talks about customer advocacy and how important that is. But in the end of the day, we don't really follow through and execute on that. But there's nothing more powerful than having, and now, I mean, for Snowflake today, I would really argue that our brand awareness is really built through the power of customer advocacy. I mean, we have thousands of customers every day talking about Snowflake, with their peers. So I would really, again, recommend everyone to really invest in customer advocacy and really put customers at the forefront
Do you think
of your
maybe
marketing. And
we've,
that
this is going to come out maybe controversial, but do you think maybe we to some degree overserve sales when you think about your budget and what goes into demand gen versus customer marketing, which sometimes in the early days it's like one reference coordinator, you know what I mean? Like do you think that we
yeah,
maybe should think about flipping that?
I would say that again, our customer marketing program, it doesn't really cost a whole lot from a marketing budget standpoint. That's the beauty of it as well, right? I mean, it's I mean, the highly costly items in terms of demand gen, right? That's everything that you're spending on those costly
Totally.
marketing, channels. Exactly. So and again, and customers, they're essentially, for free in a way, right? So but it's really about making sure that you're really sprinkling all those customer testimonial across all our channels. And at Snowflake, we've had this mantra from the beginning, is that every marketing program we do have to include, a customer, whatever it is. There always needs to be a customer testimonial, a part of that program. So of course, all our events, and of course all those are kind of the obvious ones, but we have to have always customers, speaking on our behalf at those type of events. But again, across as many marketing programs as we can.
Yeah, I like that. Just line in the sand. No, it's not going out unless it has a customer quote
Yeah,
or
and I think
whatever.
that in terms, I think you said something about over-serving sales. We can never ever over-serve sales too much. I think that's the key thing in marketing, right? I mean, we can never ever over serve them. Is my opinion. I think that's actually one of the pillars as well. It's actually pillar number 5 we have, but I think it's probably the most important pillar, and that's really to drive insane alignment with your sales organization. Of course, in B2B, this is especially true. And if you are focusing on things that might not be a top priority for your sales organization right at that time, it's going to be probably a waste, of resources. So to really align, your go-to-market resources, that's how you're gonna, grow revenue faster and better, and that's how you're going to become more customer centric as a company as well.
So how do you said insane alignment, and my take is marketing and we like each other, we're friends, we all want to win. It's not like people don't get along, right? But then how do we get out of alignment? Like how does that start to
Yeah.
happen?
Well, I think there are companies where sales and marketing don't get along, right? It does happen, out there. Of course, it starts with the alignment, with your CRO, right? The objective your CRO has is going to be, of course, the exact same objective as you have, right? For the year. So the key thing is to align around objectives. And sometimes in some organization, it happens that the CEO give an objective to sales, which of course going to be most likely around revenue, and marketing might have a slight different objective. Not, of course, that is their objective is not to drive revenue too, but there could be something else that maybe isn't as focused on driving revenue as it possibly can get. So I think that alignment around just objective is of course incredibly important, to start with, and also driving a whole marketing philosophy around that we are here for a sales organization, right? I mean, they are our most important, channel, to our markets, and also making sure that that's happening across the board in the organization. I mean, often there's also about having an understanding for the craft, of sales as well.
It's hard.
I mean, you grew up,
It's
yeah,
too
but you grew
freaking
up in
hard.
sales, right, Latané?
I wouldn't go
You grew
back.
up
It's
in
too
sales,
hard.
yeah. But that also makes you have incredible respect for the craft of sales too, that you have that experience. And that's why we also hire quite a bit to our market organization from sales too, because we want people on the team who truly understand, how the sales process works, and have a deep understanding and respect for the craft of sales too.
Yeah, I mean, nothing is more humbling than going and not just listening. Because you can listen to gong or chorus calls and kind of be like, why did they do that? You know what I mean? Like that's like this passive whatever. But go like take the little pitch and try to conduct a first meeting. Like that. That is
Yeah,
humbling, right? Um,
yeah. And you're gonna be rejected, right? I mean, 9 over 10
yeah,
times at least.
yeah.
Yes.
Pick up that bag and go for it. All right. So
And I
did we
think what
miss
happened as
any? I
well,
think we missed a couple ones.
we missed a couple ones. I mean, this third one we have is around, scale, right? I mean, you have to think scale in everything you do in marketing. And sometimes when you're in a startup environment, you're growing, sometimes you're implementing a martech stack that might not be able to scale, with you. And I think the difference today, right, is that most companies, like sixthsense, for instance, right? I mean, you have, offerings that works for a startup, but you can also scale with sixthsense, right, as well. So I think it's important to really choose technology from the beginning that you can scale with. Because what you don't want to happen, and what happens to many companies, that they get to that kind of 20 million and realize that we need to rip and replace a few things, right, in our
Mm-hmm.
marketing stack, and that's going to slow you down. So think about scale, from the beginning, from a marketing tech stack perspective. And second, also look at scale in your whole, customer acquisition, journey, as well, and make sure that all the programs you have can scale as well.
I love how you're talking about scale because I hate to move. Like I hate moving. It's terrible. And so when I think about buying software, I always tell the team like buy the house with the unfinished basement or like the big yard or right that we can add on to so we don't have to move, right? We're already there. Because
Yeah.
sometimes it's easy to think I'm gonna chintz or cheap out or there's some things like the location and blah blah blah. But like it's okay to buy a little bit bigger so that you're ready. And again, you don't have to move. Who likes moving? It sucks.
No, exactly. And the critical thing is also, of course, the integration, right, between all these different applications, and just taking something out, putting something in, that again, it's gonna, cause that slowdown. I think the other one we started talking about was around also scaling your actual, programs. In the early days, how many times haven't you got a question about the reference call, right? The sales team sends email around. Does anyone have a reference in this industry that my customer, can talk to? That is an incredibly time-consuming process as well. So one thing we did was to launch a weekly office hour with a customer. So we're driving everyone who's asking for a reference call. We're sending them to this weekly office hour call. So that way, we've been able to completely eliminate that those requests for the one-on-one reference.
Yeah, it's not just thinking like, oh, I need to buy a piece of technology. It's also like maybe the process can change or it's just thinking big like that. And I love the reference calendar approach. I also think there's some zhuzh in being able to show that calendar of look at all these people that are signed up to talk to our customers. I mean, there's some professionalism in that too. So I love it. I love it. And then I think we have one more. Have we covered them all?
There is one more, exactly.
There's one
It's
more. I
around,
can count. I can count. At
there's
least to
one
five.
more, and exactly, there's one more. It's actually number 4 on the list there, but I'm calling this one, be bold, because of course your role in marketing is of course to go out and drive awareness for your company as well. And if you're a startup or anywhere in that, 0 to $100 million phase, you don't have the budgets, right? The same budget as the companies you're often competing with, right? So the only way for you to really beat the system, right, is about, being bold. You have to stand out. You have to be, brave enough to want to do that too. And sometimes, some management teams might not be comfortable with that. Some boards, might not be comfortable with that too. But really the only way for you to really break out is really being, bold as well. That's the way you get, notice as well. So I'd say be bold, but
Being bold. Hard to do, easy to talk about, hard to do. And I heard you in our prep talk about something called a sonic boom, which sounds really intriguing. So tell us about
oh,
sonic booms.
yeah, sonic booms. Well, that doesn't actually relate so much to kind of being bold, but one thing we make sure is that every single quarter we have 3 to 4, big, sonic boom programs that everyone on the team, rallies, behind. Of course, one quarter it could be, it could of course be something like, our user conference, something like that. That could of course be a big sonic boom. But other quarters, you just don't want everything just to be running smoothly. You do your demand gen and the same old, right? You really want to do some of those big things that really people take notice of in the marketplace. So that's something every quarter we make sure that, yeah, we need at least 2, 3, 4 of those bigger sonic booms. And it could be of course a launch of some new program that's going to have big impact, or something like that.
Yeah,
And
not only I think is it super important for, the market and to show momentum and fresh and excitement and all of that, but like the team. I mean, no one wants to just do the same. We didn't get into marketing because we wanted a routine, right?
no, you live for those big moments, right? And I mean, there's nothing more exciting as a team when you have this big goal ahead of you. Everyone on the entire team can just rally, behind this, and then afterwards, right? You celebrate, together, and that's really how you build, teamwork as well,
Yeah.
right? It's really the teamwork that makes the dream work.
Yeah, it's that adrenaline rush. We're all adrenaline junkies at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Love it, love
Yeah.
it. So speaking of a sonic boom, going through an IPO process is a pretty big sonic boom, and I know a lot went into that. But now you're just back at it, right? So talk to me about the boom and then the day to day, just continuing to push through.
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, it's not really a big difference than before. And also, of course, when you go through an IPO, you need to really operate like you're a public company, at least a year, before that, right? Because you need to make sure that everything is working from the predictability, in your pipeline and all those sort of things. So there's not been a big change. Of course, an IPO is a big sonic boom, for your company. It helps a lot with your brand awareness, etc. The IPO was not really one of our sonic booms for the marketing team. I mean, there were very few people involved, in the IPO in general, because I mean, it cannot be something that everyone directs their attention to, right? Because you have a business, to run at the same time. So there were very few involved in it. But again, there's not a big difference from how we operate. The number one thing for us all the time, is our pipeline. Of course, making sure that our pipeline is, where it needs to be, and you want, of course, more predictability into that, right? You want those 2, 3 quarters out, all the time. But that's the way we operated even before the IPO as well. The second part is, of course, staying incredibly customer centric, right? I mean, that's even more important, than ever. And I think, when you become a larger company, right, that's sometimes when companies kind of, start stumbling on those things. But our number one core value as a company is putting our customers first. So everything we do is around that, customer centricity and making sure that we're always solving our customers, data problems, better than anyone else.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like it's a boom, but you don't want to distract everyone so much and get too caught up in it at the same time, because the day after the IPO, you still, the numbers are right there just to keep working. And so
Exactly.
I've heard you talk before about, I think it's interesting, you really charted your lane and marketing's lane for the process so that it didn't bleed into everything y'all were doing, which I think was a smart way to handle it.
Exactly. I mean, my focus was more on the marketing related things around the IPO, and I think you always need to be incredibly efficient, with your time. Time is not your friend for anyone,
Mm-hmm.
so it's a scarce resource. I mean, every day I look at my calendar, and is it something I need to do, or is it something I should do? Right? You always need to constantly, prioritize your time. So. To have too many people involved in something like an IPO that don't need to be involved in that doesn't make sense, right? The thing that matters is really your customers and keeping that growth trajectory that you're on.
So you guys are recent Sixth Sense customers. Thank you. And I know it's early days, but maybe how's it going? Why? What drew you to want to make that kind of investment?
Yeah. Marketing is about being extremely relevant, right? It's about being extremely relevant, and it's also about timing, right? That's the hard part, is that to kind of bring those things, together. That's where you're gonna get the greatest ROI, right? If the relevance is right and the timing is right, for the customer as well. And that's really what Sixth Sense helps us with. It's really about relevance and timing, at scale. Now there are thousands and thousands and thousands of leads to follow up on every day. It's also for SDR team, just the alignment that Sixth Sense has helped us with our SDR team, right? To help them really prioritize on which are the most important leads, for them to follow up on.
Yeah, time is no
What?
one's friend, right? It doesn't matter if you're in sales or marketing or in SDR, like we all have to operate as efficiently as possible, but again, nail the relevancy and the timing. So I'm
Yeah.
glad you're
And
in our family. It's awesome
yeah,
to have you.
and also understanding, right, where are these prospects on their journey with you as well. It's not only about kind of how relevant are you to this person and the timing, but again, where are they on the buyer's journey, with you as well, so you can be extremely relevant with your content and the programs you're serving up to them, right, at the right, time. And it comes back to that point about being customer centric as well, right? If you are someone who can be incredibly relevant to them, you're also more, customer centric. So I love that part, because that helps us continue on our path to be the most customer centric, company in the world of data. So thank you for that.
Love it. Love it. All right, let's switch gears. It's time for talking nonsense.
Mm.
So, yeah. So, industry trend, buzzword, conventional wisdom that you're just like, you know what? Nah. I call BS on that.
I think, yeah, I think in the end of the day, the most important thing is around incredibly aligned and focused execution, right? Everything you do, whatever it is, it's all about, how well are you going to execute on that latest, buzz trend. But I do think one trend is around, of course, conversational marketing and being able to have that real-time interaction, with your prospects directly on your website, those things.
Mm-hmm.
That I think is going to be a big trend, and continue to grow. Really to capture, of course, your prospect in the moment, and of course you are helping with that. Companies like Drift, are helping, with us that. That's going to be really key in terms of how we can optimize that even further in our whole customer journey, all the way to our SDR team.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. We in marketing, again, you talked about customer centricity, and obviously you guys are living that with your customers and with your prospects, because I think a lot of us, in the proverbial us, right? When you think about classic marketing automation, it's really set up for our solution, not the customer, right? And if you think about a prospect as a future customer, like, I don't want to fill out 6 forms and then wait to schedule. Like, I just want to see a demo right now. I've got 10 minutes. You know what I mean? And it's so I love, like, I think you're right. It's just capturing people when they're ready with the right
Mhm.
information, and conversational marketing is a huge part, I think, of moving to being more customer centric with prospects who are future customers.
Yeah, and everything is of course becoming even more real time, every single day. And I need, of course, to put in a plug for data, in general, right? I mean, data is going to be the big lever you will have in marketing moving forward as well. So the more data driven you can be, the more effective, and the more impact you're going to have as well.
Excellent. So last, I want to talk a little bit about you, and your career path, and just being an empowered CMO and a wife and a mother, and what are some of the things that you've learned?
Well, time, we talked about time before, is that the time is not your friend, clearly not when you have a family as well. So it's that you need to, constantly, prioritize, what matters most. And also in my job as well. I mean, the more I can prioritize on what's going to have the greatest impact, for Snowflake at all time, and really calibrating on that. That's also, of course, how I can have more time, for the things I need to focus on in my personal life, as well. So that constantly kind of calibration on what's really important and what's going to have impact. That's incredibly important.
You talked about walking through walls and what's on the other side of fear. And so tell us about kind of this concept of walking through walls.
Yeah, I think it's about the best thing in life are on the other side of fear, right? And I think that fear is very different for everyone, right? Everyone has fears for different things. Maybe something that I'm afraid of, you are not afraid of, for instance, right? So, and our confidence level is different when it comes to different things as well. So again, confidence, I think what I've learned, it's something you work for. It's not that you're going to talk to someone and someone is going to give you, confidence. You get confidence after doing something over and over, again. So I think that the most important confidence you need to have is that the confidence is that if you put in the work, you're going to get the confidence, right? I think that's what it is. And also many times when it comes to confidence is often in our heads, as well. I mean, we're often limiting, ourselves. Sometimes people blame others for things, that, oh, it's so and so's fault, or it's this situation's, fault. But I mean, you can't really control those situations, right? The only thing you can really control is yourself. And I have found that in many times in my career, I've built up walls around things that didn't even, exist, right? So you really have to look at things and, bring down those, mental walls you're building yourself that don't really exist, and break through those.
Yeah, it's easy to build that wall almost as an excuse, right? Um,
Yeah. I
uh,
mean, that's about protecting ourselves, right? I mean, we're often blaming others because we just want to, protect ourselves. But I think it's always about, looking at yourself and what are the things you can control yourself, and how do you power through that.
it's interesting. So I have 2 children, and one child things come relatively easy for, and the other child has to work so hard for everything. Um, and I often think to myself, I wonder how this is going to play out. Because the child who is way more confident has the one who has had to work, because he's like, oh, whatever, I can do this. He thinks he can do anything.
Yeah.
because he's learned so young that he just is going to have to work it out. So it's interesting being a parent and seeing things play out that also maybe played out for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that again, I think confidence is kind of knowing is that if you put in the work to it, it's gonna work out. So yeah, I know I believe in that. That's what I tell my kids too, right? I mean that you can absolutely accomplish anything, but you gotta put the work, into it as well, right? I mean that's just the simple way of how life works. I mean if you look at everyone who's really been successful, I mean look at people like Elon Musk or anyone like that. Like look at how much these people have been investing and working on that. I mean but the most important thing though is of course to do things that you're passionate about too, right? Then everything is going to feel like less work. Although I've been working a lot, I really love what I do, and that's really the foundation for success too, right?
Yeah, being able to
If you
apply
really,
that tenacity to something that's interesting, it doesn't feel like work anymore. I always say I want a cause, not a job.
yeah, and
I don't
it's
want a
about.
job. That sounds terrible. I want a cause.
But it's about knowing your strengths, right? I mean, if everyone was playing off their strength, oh, what an amazing world, we would have, right? But I mean, we take our own strength for granted all the time because we think they're just, basics. We think that the strength we have, we think everyone has those. But that's not really, how it works. And we're all, different and we're great at different things. So you need to really learn your own strengths and play off those. And of course when you're hiring, you need to hire people who are complementing your own strengths, right? I mean, that's how you build, the best teams out there. And at the end of the day, marketing is, teamwork
Oh,
more than
totally.
anything else. So if you can really have, strength across the team in every area where you need it, I mean, that's gonna wanna work. That's what's gonna work. So never ever hire anyone that looks like yourself or have the same strengths that you have yourself. That's where diversity come in, right? And the power of diversity is that everyone brings unique strength to the team and to the table.
So last question, you can't get out of Talking Sense without this one. Because I believe you learn more from your mistakes than your successes. So, big mistake, Denise. Just like, oh my gosh, why did I do that? Or looking back, what was I thinking? Um, you got to share your colossal F up.
No, definitely. And also, I mean, often we all have always give room for those incredible creative ideas. They could be big sonic booms and they could be extremely powerful, but sometimes they fall, flat. And well, this one is actually a big secret, but I'm going to tell you anyway, because you're not going to tell anyone if I tell you this one, right? Okay. No, it was years back, we did a number of these really fun, great, videos. And then one video idea we had was playing off West Side Story, right? Where one side was kind of the on-prem and the other side were the cloud folks like Snowflake. And so this was a pretty big production. There were dancers involved, producers, video shoot in LA, the whole shebang, actors, everything. And we were quite excited about this one. And then we saw the results, and it was pretty terrible. It was a disaster, a big disaster. So there are only two people at Snowflake who have ever seen this video. We'll see one day. We might just release it to kind of just show, how bad it can get. But that was a big disaster, and yeah, there was some money that went into this as well. And but you're not gonna tell anyone, right?
No, no. But you know what? God bless you for pulling the plug, right? Like, that was a good decision.
Yeah, you also need, yeah. I mean, you need to pull the plug if something is completely tone deaf, or if something is truly something only you think it's fun. It comes back to customer centric. Is this really going to bring value to your customers in terms of some entertainment or humor or high value education, right? If you can't check those three boxes, right, you can't do it. And sometimes you see this video and you realize, yeah, they probably had quite a lot of fun internally doing this, but no one else. It's not fun. It's not fun for anyone else. And, and marketing is not about you, right? Again, it's about the market and your customers. So and that was one of those examples that was it turned out to be a complete disaster.
Well,
Yeah.
nothing ventured. I mean, you don't want to run around spending money on weird stuff. Don't get me wrong. But you do have to have a
Yeah.
couple of those, or maybe you're just not trying hard enough, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that on Talking Sense. We promise we'll only tell all of the people watching and viewing this. But it's all good. And, you know, I appreciate the vulnerability and sharing that. And I so appreciate your kind of breaking down the 5 pillars of great marketing. You're definitely someone who we should all aspire to. Chief Market or Chief Marketing Officer, it doesn't matter. You're definitely the top of the game for all of us. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing all your insight, Denise.
It's great to be here with you today. Such an honor. So thank you.
All right, see you guys next time.